So if you think about modern dating today, it's basically treated like a download speed.
Well, 100%. It's like a frantic data transfer.
Exactly. We expect this complete instant transfer of information. Childhood trauma, your career ambitions, your 5-year plan.
Right, and that's all before the appetizers even arrive at the table.
Yeah, it's exhausting. But today, we're taking a deep dive into something completely different. We're looking at a case study of a really profound human connection.
And this connection, it's fascinating. It took 84 days to yield a single spoken word.
Which is just wild to think about. We're diving into this brilliant short story called The Tuesday Window.
It really is a masterclass, in the mechanics of a true slow burn connection.
It absolutely flips the script on how intimacy is built. So our mission today for you listening is to basically dissect the psychological safety required to build this kind of trust.
Yeah, trust that is built almost entirely through shared silence and, the marginalia of old books.
Right. We want to figure out how two people can actually learn more about each other without speaking than most of us learn in like a solid year of texting.
The contrast there is exactly what makes this source material so compelling.
Totally.
Because, we live under this assumption that verbal communication is the primary engine of connection.
Or even the only engine. Like if you aren't talking, you aren't connecting.
Exactly. But the Tuesday Window completely strips that mechanism away. It forces us to examine the foundational architecture of trust.
Which is what we're going to do right now. We're going to examine that architecture by looking at the environment.
Because the environment is crucial here.
It really is. The setting of this story, it isn't just a backdrop, it's essentially the third character in the narrative.
Right. We are in the Harrow Mountain Library.
Built in 1923.
And it essentially hasn't been updated since.
Which is key. For you listening, picture this. There are no glass-walled collaborative workspaces here.
No kinetic energy, no corporate coffee franchise buzzing in the lobby.
None of that. It is just floor-to-ceiling shelves. It's rolling wooden ladders that the text says they groan pleasantly.
I love that detail. And there are these 3 tall windows facing the mountain, fitted with this original settling glass.
Yeah, that old glass.
Yeah.
And it filters the harsh afternoon light into something that's slightly uneven, but incredibly warm.
The author says it makes the light warmer than ordinary light has any right to be.
It's such a beautiful image. And that glass acts as a physical barrier, right? It alters the frequency of the outside world before it's allowed to touch the people inside.
And that concept, that altering of the frequency of the outside world, that is central to understanding our protagonist, Rosalind.
Because the physical environment of the library is mirroring her internal state.
Precisely. It performs the exact same function that psychological defense mechanisms perform for our minds.
Right, because human beings, especially, introverted or highly sensitive people, they require environments that gate sensory input.
And social input, too. Think about it. Every time you step into a public space, there's this implicit social contract.
Oh, demanding your baseline awareness, you have to monitor everything.
Yeah, you have to monitor threats. You have to acknowledge passing strangers, navigate physical proximity.
Just being prepared for spontaneous interaction is exhausting.
It's a huge cognitive load, but the Harrow Mountain Library is a space where that social contract is temporarily suspended.
Because the rule there is simple. You handle the books carefully, and you remain silent.
The demand for output is absolute zero.
And Rosalind has structured her entire life around this suspension.
She really has. She arrives every Tuesday exactly at 2:30 p.m.
Like clockwork.
Yeah.
And she sits in the exact same chair, the one nearest the left-hand window.
And she brings her own thermos of tea from home.
Right, because the library's tea machine produces something terrible.
So she doesn't even interact with that.
Yeah.
She's totally self-contained.
But let me stop you right there, though. Because while the source material paints this beautifully, and it feels very poetic, clinically speaking, how is this not just classic avoidant behavior?
That's a really fair question.
Right, because we can call it a sanctuary, sure, but she is sitting in the exact same chair hiding behind her own thermos for 2 solid years.
2 years, yeah.
So isn't this just a highly aesthetically pleasing form of isolating oneself?
Well, you're touching on this incredibly fine line between a boundary and a barricade. It's a very common psychological debate.
Okay, so how do we differentiate the two?
To do that, you have to look at the motivation and the energy exchange. Avoidant behavior is typically rooted in fear.
Meaning she would perceive the outside world as a threat.
Exactly. The individual perceives external engagement as a threat that will cause pain, so they preemptively retreat. They build a barricade.
But you're saying Rosalind is doing something different.
I am. A healthy boundary, which is what I'd argue she has, is about energy regulation. Look at her profession.
Right, she's a textile restorer.
And what does that entail?
I mean, she spends her days working with incredibly fragile, disintegrating fabrics. She uses single threads to literally hold history together.
It's painstaking.
It's a massive expenditure of focus.
And fine motor patience. She isn't hiding from the world because she fears it. She's retreating to the library to recalibrate her cognitive load.
Ah, okay. So a barricade keeps the world out entirely, so you never have to risk engaging.
Right. But a boundary creates this localized, almost like a Faraday cage around her.
A Faraday cage, I like that. It blocks out the ambient social static.
Exactly. So she can regenerate the energy she actually needs to function in her demanding profession.
Which makes the thermos of tea not a rejection of the world, but a mechanism of self-reliance.
Yes. She knows exactly what she needs to regulate her internal temperature, and she provides it for herself.
She doesn't need the library's terrible machine. She's got it handled.
She is perfectly sealed.
But as we know, perfectly sealed ecosystems are eventually breached.
They always are.
Which brings us to early September and the arrival of James.
The introduced variable.
A variable. So James walks into the reading room, and he chooses a chair by the right-hand window.
Which is just one table away from Rosalind.
Right. And he quietly opens a book. No introduction, no disruptive noise.
The story notes that she notices him, quote, "The way you notice something that has always been in a room once it shifts slightly."
Like a chair moved or a window left open. It's such a subtle intrusion.
Very subtle.
And then for 4 entire weeks, they sit one table apart and do not exchange a single word.
4 weeks. Just coexistence.
Which, I mean, if I'm Rosalind, someone sitting near me for a month without saying hello would eventually start feeling intensely awkward.
Oh, for most people it would.
Yeah, maybe even a bit hostile. Why doesn't it feel that way to her?
Well, it's because James is subverting the standard social threat response. He's doing this by matching the room's baseline frequency.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Think about it. If he had walked in on day one and enthusiastically introduced himself, he would have instantly triggered her defense mechanisms.
Because a greeting is a demand.
Exactly. It requires processing power. It forces the other person to evaluate you, formulate a polite response, engage in that whole exhausting dance of social pleasantries.
The PR management of standard conversation.
Right. But by simply sitting down and engaging solely with his book, James proves that he understands the rules of the sanctuary.
He doesn't just tolerate the silence, he contributes to it.
Yes, and in adult developmental psychology, we actually see this functioning very similarly to parallel play.
Okay, I've heard that term used for toddlers.
Yes, very common in childhood development.
Like they sit in a sandbox, facing different directions, playing with their own little trucks, but they're technically together.
Exactly.
But how does that apply to 2 adults in a 1923 library? I feel like adults require more sophisticated engagement to actually build trust.
You'd think so, but adults absolutely utilize parallel play. We just rebrand it.
Rebranded as what?
As co-working or simply companionship. The underlying psychological mechanism is identical.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when you share a physical space with someone without the pressure of direct interaction, your brain's amygdala, which is constantly scanning for social demands or threats, gets to just power down.
You stop feeling hunted by the potential of a conversation.
Exactly. You begin to associate that person's physical presence with a state of physiological calm.
Wow. So for someone as fiercely protective of her peace as Rosalind, James's consistent, respectful non-action is actually the highest form of courtesy.
It is. He earns her trust precisely by not demanding it from her.
Which brings us to the concept of micro-habits. Because, okay, while they aren't talking, they are definitely observing each other.
Intensely.
Right. In a normal, noisy environment, our brains filter out all these extraneous details just to survive the sensory overload.
You have to, or you'd go crazy.
But the library's silence lowers that baseline so dramatically that the tiniest gestures become these massive data points.
What does she notice?
Well, she notices that James never brings tea, but he always looks like he wants it.
Which is endearing.
Yeah. She notices he reads slowly. And she notices this very specific habit he has.
The thumb on the page.
Yes. He presses his thumb carefully along the edge of a page before he turns it.
It's a gesture that suggests he was taught to treat books gently, and he just never stopped doing it.
She is literally constructing an entire psychological profile of this man based purely on his kinetic relationship with objects.
And the fascinating thing is, the data is often far more reliable than anything a person might actually tell you about themselves.
Wait, really? More reliable than words?
Oh, absolutely. When people speak, especially early on, they are engaged in impression management.
They're curating the version of themselves they want you to see, like on a first date.
Precisely. It's a performance. But micro habits, like how someone turns a page, or how they organize their workspace, how they react to a sudden noise, those are unconscious.
They bypass the ego's filtering system entirely.
Yes. By watching James handle a book with such reverence, Rosalind is witnessing his authentic capacity for care.
Because he doesn't know she's watching.
Right. She is learning about his gentleness in a way that he couldn't possibly fake.
That is wild. And I want to ask you listening, how often do you notice the micro habits of the strangers around you? Are you too busy looking at your phone to see how someone holds their coffee cup?
It's a lost art, really. Observation.
It is, and this shared silent observation sets up the transition to October so perfectly.
Because the dynamic shifts.
It does. They shift from passive observation to active communication, but, and this is key, they still don't speak.
Not a word.
James leaves a slim collection of mountain essays on Rosalind's table. There's no note. He just leaves the book.
And she reads it.
She reads it, and then the next week she leaves a collection of nature writing she's read twice on his table.
A silent exchange begins.
This goes on for weeks. It's this beautiful, asynchronous dialogue. But I have to ask you, isn't this incredibly inefficient?
Inefficient in what way?
I mean, if you want to know what someone thinks about nature or the world, why not just ask them?
Because asking is direct.
Yeah, why rely on an object to do all the talking? It takes a whole week to get a response.
Because the object acts as a vital psychological buffer.
Yeah.
You have to remember, we're talking about two people who are highly guarded.
They like their Faraday cages.
Exactly. When you look at someone directly and say, this is my deepest philosophy on life, this is what moves me, you are putting your ego directly in the line of fire.
Because if they say, oh, I think that's dumb, they are rejecting you.
Right. If they reject your philosophy, it feels like a personal rejection. But this phenomenon, which we can call curated sharing, it transfers all that vulnerability onto a third-party object.
It's a proxy.
Yes. If he doesn't resonate with the book, Rosalind leaves him. He's just rejecting the author's prose. He's not rejecting Rosalind's soul.
So she retains her plausible deniability. She can just say, oh, I just thought it was an okay book, even if it's her favorite.
Precisely. It is an ego defense mechanism. But it's a brilliant one because it allows for profound intimacy without the terrifying exposure of direct verbalization.
That makes so much sense. But we shouldn't mistake this for being shallow just because it's buffered.
No, not at all. The books they choose are hyper-specific.
Yeah, mountain essays and nature writing.
Yeah.
These genres are entirely focused on slow, grand, unstoppable forces.
Glaciers carving out valleys over millennia. forest slowly regenerating after a fire.
They revere patience.
By exchanging these specific texts, James and Rosalind are essentially mapping their internal landscapes for each other.
She learns through this proxy that he is drawn to landscapes. She learns he likes writing with patience in it.
And that he prefers books that ends with the sense that things had settled into their proper shape.
Think about how starkly this contrasts with modern dating.
Oh, it's night and day.
Right. Because today you might send a playlist or a meme, which is a form of curated sharing, but when you actually go on a first date, it's basically a PR interview.
What do you do? Where did you go to school? What are your hobbies?
It's a verbal resume. It's highly polished and mostly devoid of actual meaning.
Right.
So here's a thought experiment for you. Do you think this method of communication, this silent book exchange, actually yields a higher quality of interpersonal data than a first date interview?
Unquestionably.
Really?
Unquestionably.
Yes, because when you ask standard biographical questions, you receive standardized biographical answers.
You get the script.
Right. You learn about a person's societal functioning, but you learn almost nothing about their internal reality. But when you read a book that deeply moved someone, you are temporarily occupying their consciousness. You are seeing the world through the exact lens that they value.
So when James reads Rosalind's nature collection,
he is experiencing her internal rhythm. He isn't learning what she does. He is learning how she processes reality.
wow.
And that is a vastly deeper level of knowing than, I work in HR and I like hiking. That is so true. And Rosalind really feels this depth. The source material points out she likes to think the books she leaves him tell him something equally true about her.
Even if she isn't fully sure what that truth is.
Right, which requires a tremendous leap of faith. You have to trust that this other person is interpreting your proxies correctly.
Which is a very fragile equilibrium.
Very fragile. And as we move into November, the environment actually starts to force their hand. It tests that equilibrium.
The weather turns cold.
The mountain disappears into these heavy, low clouds.
And the old radiator in the library starts hissing to life.
The physical space is compressing them. The room feels smaller. And it finally leads to a physical collision at the rolling ladder.
This is a great moment. The physical architecture literally forces the interaction they've been sublimating all this time.
Right. They both reach for the same shelf at the same time. Their intentions physically intersect.
For the first time.
It's like two solitary planets finally intersecting orbits. And James speaks.
The first words.
He says, please, go ahead.
And Rosalind replies, thank you.
5 words. That's it. But the text describes the aftermath of those 5 words beautifully. It says, the silence between them was different. Not less comfortable, but fuller. The way a conversation is fuller than a monologue.
It's a brilliant distinction.
Let's analyze the physics of that moment. Why does the introduction of a voice, literally just 5 words, completely alter the acoustic frequency of the room for them?
Well, because a voice is a physical intrusion. Before they spoke, the silence was simply the baseline condition of the room.
It was just the absence of noise.
Exactly. But once they vocalize, they acknowledge each other as active participants in that shared space.
So the silence ceases to be empty.
Right, it becomes a container holding their mutual awareness. They have breached the Faraday cage, but they haven't destroyed it.
They've simply invited the other person inside.
Beautifully put, yes.
And over the next few weeks, mid-November, they exchange a total of maybe 30 words.
30 words total.
30 words. I mean, most people use 30 words just clearing their throats before making a point.
Or ordering a coffee.
Right. But in that absolute severe economy of language, they actually learn each other's professions.
James is a botanist.
Which she figures out from his margin notes in field guides. And she confirms she restores textiles.
I want to look closely at these professions because they feel incredibly metaphorical for the way these two operate.
They totally do. Let's unpack that.
Well, a botanist and a textile restorer are both fundamentally concerned with the preservation and observation of delicate things.
Over extended periods of time.
Exactly. A botanist understands that you cannot force a seed to sprout by yelling at it.
Right. Growth requires the right soil, the right light, and time. You can't rush it.
And a textile restorer knows that if you rush a needle through fragile, aging silk, you will destroy the very thing you were trying to save.
So they both possess this intimate professional understanding of entropy and time.
Yes. So when they approach a fragile human connection, they instinctively apply the exact same methodology.
They don't rush the needle.
They do not yell at the seed.
They let the connection dictate its own pace. That is amazing. And it leads to Rosalind having this profound realization. She notes that she feels the most considerate she had ever felt known by someone she barely knew.
That is a staggering sentence. We really need to unpack what it means to feel known in our current culture versus what it means in the context of this story.
Because I was struck by that line too. In our culture, feeling known usually implies that someone has successfully interrogated you.
Right. They've mined you for data.
They've extracted all your history, they know your traumas, your family dynamics, your neuroses. We equate the intensity of disclosure with the depth of intimacy.
Which is a fallacy. But James hasn't demanded a single piece of biographical data from her.
None. So how does she feel so known?
Because he understands that her biography is not her essence. We often confuse the events of a person's life with the nature of the person themselves.
Well, that's good. We confuse the events with the nature.
Right. James knows her nature. He knows her capacity for stillness. He knows her reverence for careful prose.
He knows how fiercely she protects her boundaries with that thermos.
Exactly. He knows her meticulous approach to mending broken things. He knows the architecture of her mind, even if he doesn't know the furniture inside it.
Wow.
That is why she feels profoundly considered. He's witnessing her without demanding she perform for him.
It's the difference between reading a Wikipedia summary of a forest and actually just sitting quietly in the woods for 3 months.
James is just sitting in the woods.
He really is. But, a terrarium can only sustain itself for so long before it has to interact with the broader climate.
The outside world always knocks eventually.
And late November arrives, bringing a heavy snowstorm. The snow completely muffles the outside world. It blanks out the mountain, and it isolates the library. This is the ultimate catalyst.
It forces a choice.
Why does extreme weather consistently force social interaction, even in completely safe indoor environments where everyone is fine?
It taps into a very deeply rooted evolutionary mechanism.
Really? Like a survival thing?
Yes. When the environment outside becomes hostile, whether it's a heavy snowstorm, a blackout, or even being stranded in an airport, our primitive brain registers a shrinking of our survivable world.
So the perimeter of safety suddenly contracts to just the walls of the building you're in?
Exactly. It creates an instant psychological snow globe effect. The people inside that perimeter with you transition from being background NPCs to being fellow survivors of a micro event.
The shared isolation amplifies the need for tribal cohesion.
Which naturally lowers social barriers and prompts interaction.
That makes total sense. So the snow amplifies this intimacy that's been brewing for 12 weeks. James watches the snow, and then he finally makes his move.
But his phrasing here is an absolute masterclass in emotional intelligence.
It is brilliant. He doesn't ask her on a date.
No.
He says very quietly, "There's a cafe across the road. They do a very good tea, I think. If you wanted to watch the snow from somewhere warmer than this window."
It's so delicate.
If we break that down structurally, it is genius. He doesn't make it about his desire to be with her. He makes it about the tea and the snow.
It is the ultimate low-stakes invitation. He is essentially proposing that they continue doing exactly what they are already doing.
Which is watching the snow.
Just from a slightly more comfortable vantage point.
Yeah.
But the real brilliance is the inclusion of "if you wanted to."
Why is that so important?
Because he is building a psychological escape hatch directly into the invitation.
Oh, giving her it out.
Exactly. If Rosalind is overwhelmed, she can easily decline by saying she prefers the radiator, and neither of them loses face.
He protects her from the guilt of rejection, and he protects his own ego from the sting of it.
It's incredibly respectful.
It's so smooth. But Rosalind doesn't just fold immediately. She actually tests the boundary one last time.
She does. She replies, "The radiator's quite warm."
And James acknowledges it, but he nudges her slightly. He says, "It is, though the cafe has better tea than your thermos, I suspect.
Now, the hierarchy of tea in this story is fascinating.
I obsess over this detail. Let's lay it out.
Okay, so you have the library machine tea at the bottom.
Which is mass-produced and terrible. It represents the harsh, demanding outside world.
Right. Then you have Rosalind's thermos tea. This is her self-reliance, her protective shell.
Her perfectly calibrated defense mechanism.
And now James is offering a third tier.
The cafe's tea, in proper ceramic cups, which represents the risk, but also the reward of a shared experience.
By challenging the thermos, James is gently challenging her isolation. He's suggesting that while her self-reliance is admirable, interdependence might offer something qualitatively better.
And Rosalind considers the 12 weeks of silent, careful proof he's provided.
She weighs the evidence.
And she accepts. But she gets the last word on autonomy. She says, "All right, though you should know my thermos tea is quite good."
I love that defense.
It's such a tiny, beautiful moment. It's her way of saying, I don't need your intervention to be okay, but I am choosing to engage with it.
And that is the cornerstone of a healthy relational dynamic. It is two complete, self-sufficient individuals choosing to bridge the gap between them.
Rather than two incomplete people seeking enmeshment.
Exactly. She's maintaining her sovereign identity right up until the very moment she steps out the door.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps the most dangerous phase of this connection.
That transition.
The transition. They pack up, they leave the safety of the 1923 library, and they step out into the freezing snowstorm to cross the street. Why is this so perilous?
Because of the fragility of situational relationships.
Right, like the person you talk to at the gym every day.
Exactly, or a work colleague. The banter is great in that specific environment, but the second you try to get coffee on a Saturday,
it's excruciatingly awkward. You realize you have absolutely nothing in common without the context of the gym equipment or the office politics.
situational relationships rely entirely on the environment to provide the scaffolding for the connection.
And when you remove the scaffold,
The structure collapses. Moving from the library to the cafe is the ultimate stress test for James and Rosalind.
because if their connection was merely a byproduct of the golden light and the quiet room, the walk across the freezing street would shatter the illusion.
The neurotic need to fill the void with small talk would instantly take over. They would panic.
But they don't panic. The story explicitly notes that as they walk across the snowy street together, they don't say much, and it feels entirely natural.
They handle the pressure.
They act like a submarine adjusting to oceanic pressure. They don't surface too fast and get the bends. They carry the silence with them across the road.
They survived the transition because their foundation wasn't built on witty banter or circumstantial complaints.
No.
Their foundation was built on a mutual, deeply tested comfort with silence. They have spent 84 days proving to each other that silence is not a void that needs to be frantically filled.
It is a medium of connection in itself.
Yes.
And they transport that medium perfectly. They walk into the cafe, they find a table by the front window.
Mirroring their setup in the library.
Exactly, mirroring it. And the tea arrives in proper ceramic cups. And the story doesn't end with some sweeping romantic monologue or a cinematic kiss.
It ends very quietly.
It ends with them sitting across from each other, realizing that the silence between them here in the cafe feels like more than enough to begin with.
It settles into its proper shape.
Just exactly like the endings of the books James loves.
It completely proves the concept. The invitation itself wasn't the true climax of the story.
What was the climax?
The climax was the realization that their psychological safety was portable. They proved that you don't need a barrage of words to build a profound bond.
If you're willing to utilize patience, observation, and respect,
Precisely.
it's an incredible journey from the rigid safety of that left-hand window through weeks of silent parallel play, the careful proxy of book exchanges, a 30-word verbal bridge, and finally, a shared cup of tea in a snowstorm.
It completely redefines what it means to build intimacy.
It really does. Which brings me to the thought I want to leave you with today. We live in a society that basically pathologizes quiet.
We are terrified of dead air.
We really are. If there is a lull in a conversation, our heart rates spike, and we rush to fill it with anything: gossip, complaints, interrogations.
We want the data on a person, and we want it immediately, assuming that data equals connection.
But what if you actively resisted that urge? Think about the people in your life, a coworker, a neighbor, someone you see regularly but don't deeply know.
If you couldn't use words.
Right. If you stripped away the interview questions, if you suspended the demand for verbal output,
Yeah.
what could you learn about their nature just by watching how they handle the quiet? What micro habits reveal their true capacity for care?
It's a powerful challenge.
The next time you feel the panic of a silent moment, don't fill it. Just observe. You might find that 84 days of quiet tells you a much truer story than an hour of noise ever could.